pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for April 11th, 2018. Joining me right now on the line, Duane Rollins as well. Duane, good morning.
Good morning. I'm live on location from the spirit of the mind. I'm in Mexico City in my mind.
Yes, and closer to doctors in reality, and we appreciate. Again, this podcast is brought to you by Antibiotics, helping the world be having a better voice day by day. Duane, one thing coming out of last night, let's just remind our listeners quickly, what a game. 1-1 down at Estadio Azteca. Toronto 4-1 on aggregate. Actually, 4-2 on aggregate. Qualifying for the Champions League final.
I can get any team to do so, obviously. Look, the remarkable thing to me for this game is that I watched the second half, not through slits in my fingers, but wide-eyed and just watching it. This seemed like another game.
I was so shocked. I'm like, the floodgates are about to open. Like 1 or 2 goals are about to go in. Nope. What? Wait. Okay, 80th, 82nd, 85th. Okay, now it's done. It's over. They're not going to score 4 in 3 minutes.
There was a stretch at the end of the first half where TFC did look like, oh, this is going to be ugly and it's going to be hard to hold on. But then when they came out of the second half, after maybe 5 minutes, it seemed like they settled in and were like, okay, now it might have been mental. They might have looked at the clock and went, okay, we have 10 minutes. Let's break this up into 10-minute periods. They have to score 1 goal every 10 minutes. So let's get a clean sheet for this 10 minutes. I think maybe that might have been the mentality that they took down there because they seemed more assured. They obviously were playing a low block, and they didn't have a lot going forward. I mean, God love Toussaint. He was running his head off there, but he was never going to get to anything. And Javinko was isolating most of the night, all night, especially after Josie went out. Josie was never really there.
Yeah, he played, 10 minutes? If so. It was unfortunate, but there's always something happening, right? Estadio Azteca and those Mexican nights, those Concacaf Champions League evenings, there's always something happening. Either an injury, something controversial, drama. There's always something that happens that usually doesn't in the league just because of the second, third effort, the will to win maybe, or the fact that clubs are taking it seriously. When I was looking at the reactions to Club America players, they literally played like they had the weight of a country and a league on their shoulder. And let's remind our listeners once again, Toronto FC, yes, it's a Major League Soccer team, but they represent the Canadian Soccer Association in this thing.
No, of course they do, yeah. And here, in the lead up to this, was calling the Americans in the United States, and I think that was to try to get under their skin or something. Lots of mind games, but at the end, the mind game playing today is whether or not. I was reading some Mexican press today, and he's on the hot seat. Let's just say that. There's not a lot of people very happy with how he approached this, calling this approach arrogant, saying that he should have spent more time scouting rather than spouting his mouth off. Lots of stuff like that being said in Mexico right now. Look, it was a remarkable performance. I saw one person suggest that it was Ives said that it was the best 2-game tie by an MLS team in history, and I don't know whether you can argue that. I think it's inarguably the best 2-game tie by a MLS team in history. It really is. They were never. It was never a hold on and hope situation like we said it was yesterday. Like it might be yesterday. The Tigres tie was more like that.
Yeah. Tigres is better than America, I have to say right now. And Club America would have needed a certain Darwin Quintero maybe in this tie. But alas, he is now playing for Minnesota. One name that was on everybody's lips during this game and after last night, Duane, I'm probably going to butcher it, of course. Rashvan Irmatov. Discuss.
It was a very good refereeing performance.
And, wow. When you see a referee at Azteca not give a damn about Azteca or America players and not being intimidated, influenced, oh yeah, felt good to finally see this happen in the CCL.
Well, that's just it. I mean, what it was a guy that's refereed at a World Cup opener, that's refereed at World Cups, in the Asian Champions League in incredibly intense and intimidating places. This is a guy that wasn't walking into Azteca and going, "Oh my God, they're going to hurt me if I make a call against them." And he just called the game. I don't think he called the game for America. I don't think he called the game for Toronto. He called the game, and that's all you wanted of a referee. And in Concacaf, we have so rarely seen that. It was refreshing to see. It shouldn't, be this exciting to be talking about what was just, a basic refereeing performance that, doing his job properly. But it really was, and it's just to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's just to me that Concacaf has a ways to go on that front, and there's lots of reasons why that might be the case, and hopefully those reasons are just the lack of experience and not the more sinister reasons.
Yeah, and hopefully League of Nations, or the nation, that tournament that's starting, will give more international experience to referees and hopefully raise the level. Let's see, raising tides raises all ships, they say. But the image that you see on the TV right now is Miguel Herrera, after the whistle of the first half, walking next to the referee, giving him a earful, and trying to influence him. And the reaction of laughter, smile, and just brushing him off like he was a fly. Oh man, Miguel Herrera, the outspoken coach who cannot even comprehend someone not even listening to him. Oh, he was so mad, and that was such great television.
Oh yeah, he was falling throughout the entire second half because his axe wasn't working. It works against the Concacaf referees. He does that not because he thinks that they were outrageously screwed over by a call, because I can't really off the top of my head think of a call in the first half that would have even remotely caused a reaction like that. But he does that for a purpose, and that purpose was not working against this guy. So good. That's the way it should be. The game was decided by the players on the pitch. And over the two ties, I don't think Club America has a leg to stand on if they want to argue that they, got screwed over or they got hard done by. They really didn't. And to be fair to them, when I'm looking at fan reaction on Twitter and things like that, and again, this is through my squinted eyes and trying to suss out Spanish through translation and otherwise.
to Google Translate.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's how they're reacting. It seems like the reaction is, we should have been better, and that's on the coach.
One thing that disappointed me too is Azteca itself. I don't know about you, but in my very young memory of the last few years, it felt a lot more intimidating than it was last night. Yes, it's due to renovations, due to the heavy rain, which made for some fans finding a refuge underneath those big tarps. But they changed the camera side as well. When I was there and in 2015, the hard camera that was filming and the camera that was filming the game was on the other side, which is more conducive to see fans. Now it's on the other side, and you see a bit more of the inner workings and a bit more of the concession stands and big renovations of a lot of seats there too. So that is unfortunate, but because you didn't get the atmosphere translated on TV, because you were just looking at the stadium and you saw tarps and lights and empty seats, and it actually made for the atmosphere to not convey through the television like we did in 2015, which we really felt it. And being there, it was something else too. There was like 75,000 people in 2015. It wasn't the case last night, not even close.
No, and look, when you're again reading the reaction online, a lot of people in Mexico have said this a little bit, that Azteca's mystique is gone, and it's gone because of the renovations. It's gone because they feel that authorities are trying to sanitize the environment. Some of the ways they're trying to sanitize it is trying to eliminate a certain chance that most of us think they should anyway. But regardless of that aside, they feel that there's a lot of things that take the Azteca of their dad away from the experience that they are having.
And Toronto FC have qualified for the Concacaf Champions League final. They will be playing against Chivas, who won 1-0 against Red Bull last night. A game that we're not going to take a lot of time to talk about because it was just like that. And we're all a bit disappointed about the opportunity missed by Red Bull, because this Chivas side might be the weaker of the three Mexican side that Toronto FC will have faced in this competition. It's in rebuilding mode, and it's in better state than it was just a few years ago, but if the promotion relegation wasn't on hiatus or on a embargo right now, you would see Chivas as one of the candidates for relegation, and now you see Chivas in the final versus Toronto. Do you have to consider Toronto the favorite, even though they start this two-leg final at home?
I think they are the favorite, yeah, because I think they're the better team. They've proven that over the first two legs and how this competition has played out. In terms of disappointment versus excitement, on a personal level, I was happy with the result. All due respect to Red Bull listeners out there, and I mean, I'm not trying to be anti-MLS here or something, but from an observational standpoint, I'm glad to have another historical Mexico team come up, and I think the TFC, probably looks. I suspect TFC is excited about this too, and in many ways, I think the Red Bulls would have been the banana peel team in the final for TFC more than Chivas, because they're not going to let their guard down against an MLS team. There would have been a possibility that at least somewhere subconsciously they might have let their guard down a little bit, and Bradley Wright Phillips kills the dream and ends up taking the trophy that they so desperately want back to New York.
Yeah, I could have seen that happen easily. Now, Toronto flying already to Colorado for the game-winning weekend. If you're Greg Vanney, 11 changes. You don't give a damn about this Colorado game and all eyes on Tuesday?
I don't know if people have seen the quote yet. It's in Kurt Larson's article. He goes, there's no sense even pretending we are not prioritizing Colorado. That was quote unquote what he said. So anyone who is healthy and needs minutes will play. So Jordan Hamilton, step on up. It's
TFC2?
Jay Chapman. Yeah.
TFC2 will play against Colorado this weekend.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they said they were prioritizing this off the start of the year, and that's why, when you're looking at TFC season, it was a smart bet to maybe hedge your bets on the Shield, but to look out for them in the playoffs again. I mean, this is, you look at what they're doing against these teams, and when they decide that they want to start prioritizing MLS play, you'd have to think they are going to get rolling at some point based on this, right? I mean, even with injuries, it's hard to. That's like the one caveat you usually put here. But they have injuries and they're still doing this, so that's only giving more experience to the younger players. So yeah, it in many ways it's almost an opportunity for TFC to play a highly rotated squad on Saturday. It will be interesting to see if Bradley plays, because he so doesn't ever want to leave the field.
Yeah.
Whether, they're going to trick him, they're going to put him on a plane to Spa or something, and then not tell him. Maybe that'll be what they'll do.
And speaking of Bradley, we'll finish the CCL segment with this. Bradley was able to keep his emotion in check when Paul Aguilar decided to headbutt him, literally headbutt, and argue for no reason. And Aguilar felt really mad and aggressive. I was like, what's wrong with him? Like, geez, calm down, man. It's not good for your heart. You're not going to live too old if you continue to be this mad about a stupid play. But Bradley kept his emotion in check. Bradley did not respond, did not push, did not get mad, kept his emotion in check, turned around, told the referee it. Referee turns around, give the yellow card to Bradley. And I think that's a really good microcosm on how Toronto handled themselves at Azteca.
Yeah, they have a lot of players on the yellow card. And I don't understand the CCL's logic in not wiping the yellow cards out at any point during this competition. I understand it in the sense that I understand Concacaf, and Concacaf doesn't make sense. But
Concacaf doesn't understand soccer. But this is the only tournament in the entire world, Duane, where the yellow cards are not wiped off before the final. Never mind before the semis, usually.
Yeah, it's God knows what they're thinking. But anyway, they've been remarkable. Michael Bradley got his yellow card in the first half of the first game. So, he's been holding it for a long time now. One more game to go, and then it doesn't matter. So we'll see next Tuesday already. So quick, eh? And that's the crazy thing. It's 1 week, and we're doing 2 weeks. It's done.
Yep.
And that's a remarkable that TFC's playing in another final. After all those bleak years, we're having 3 finals at BMO Field within 2 years. That's crazy.
While Duane is getting emotional, we'll take a quick break and come back and talk more about an emotional day as well for Barcelona.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
I wouldn't say I'm a liar, but I lied. I guess I lied. I said they had no shot. I said they had no chance. And Roma wins 3-0 at home. And Roma's going to the semifinal of the Champions League, and Barcelona's just going back home.
Turns out Totti was the problem all these years.
Turns out Totti knew it all along, though. Go back to the draw. Totti picks Barcelona versus Roma, and Totti smiles. Totti knew it all along, but he was the problem.
There you go. Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, I was primarily focused on the City game, and we could talk about that in a minute. But once that get out of hand, once Liverpool got its second goal, I flipped back over and was focused entirely on the last 15, 20 minutes of the Roma game. What a remarkable performance! And they are the underdog team here. It's nice to have a team, underdog. Roma, it's like a pretty big club, but it's all in context.
Against Barcelona, every club is an underdog. There's like one club in the entire world, and that's Real Madrid. Any other opponent, and every other opponent, is an underdog versus Barcelona. That's just how big Barcelona is.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. But it's a high level mark for them, though. I mean, this is not your traditional top team in Italy. This is a traditional second-tier team in Italy. So for them to be what Juventus likely going out today, but that's not assume anything after yesterday.
You never know.
But with them likely, it's a remarkable day. And go Liverpool and Roma. Maybe they draw each other. There's a good chance. There's a 25% chance of that happening. And if that occurs, then we're guaranteed to have a sentimental underdog team in the final, and that would be something that I think would make the final more compelling than if it was just Bayern Real, which on chalk would be where you'd go with this. But yeah, I don't know what happened with Barcelona. Messi was human, and there's a lot of people that observe Barcelona very closely that say this has been the Messi season. That it's basically he has carried them through a lot of this, and when he's not fully firing, then they're a little more accessible. They're a little more beatable, and that was the case yesterday. He wasn't really that visible, and I mean, it led to a lot of hot takes in the world. Oh, Messi doesn't come up big again, and then you look at his record, and come on, people. But
I remember us saying just a few months ago, "Oh, is this the end of Barcelona?" Come on. It's never true. It's never the end. It's just the end of this cycle. It means another cycle starting. And it's just another continuation of wins for Barcelona, but not this year in the Champions League. And you mentioned Messi. Messi versus good defenders like Italians, or like Juve last year, like Roma this year. I guess they found a way to neutralize the Lion. Because if you put 3-4 guys on him, I know he's good. He's really, really good. But 90 minutes with 4 defenders on you, you can't do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the peak Barcelona teams, they were driven as much by the midfield as they were by Messi. They had, the creators up there that were giving him the space. And as we've said many, many times before, Messi is the greatest finisher we've ever seen. So when you give him an inch, he's going to score. But when he doesn't get that inch, he can dribble. He can beat people on the dribble, but he's not, like any player on any team anywhere in the world, it is a team game, and you need to have other people providing you with the service to allow you to do the things that you're good at. And as good as Lionel Messi is, the old song, "We all dream of a team of Messis," is I don't think that'd be a very good team because they'd probably allow 7 or 8 goals a game. So,
exactly.
That's...
They'll score 9.
Don't know how good of a keeper. Yeah, I don't know how good of a keeper he'd be.
Well, a short one. He'll be exposed to goals in the top corners. But let's just touch on Manchester City and Liverpool. You mentioned yesterday that you accepted it. You knew this was coming. And for a while, City looked like it was coming. But then Guardiola gets ejected. And then you have Salah just being Mo Salah and scoring his 39th goal in all competition over the last few months. And you're thinking, yep, Liverpool, another upset. Liverpool, for the first time in 15 years, is in the semifinal of the Champions League.
10, I believe, but yeah.
10, yeah. First time in 10 years.
Look, I'm going to say this carefully because I want people to, and you can look back on my feed to say that I was initially saying this as well. The reason City lost is not because the ref blew the call on the second goal, that should have stood, but that is a legitimate reason to help you understand what happened after that. It was City got a T-bit. I mean, the ball came off Milner, clearly, to Sané, who scored the goal that should have made it 3-2 heading into the break. That's an entirely different game if that occurs, and it does change things. But as I said just a moment ago, and I've said several times since, really this tie was lost in this 30 minutes at Anfield when City just could not react to the chaos that Liverpool created up front, which is what they're good at. City is an ultimate systems team, and when they are forced out of that system in any way whatsoever, they can sometimes be spread apart. They can be made to look a little bit ordinary if they're taken out of the system. Now, what they're great at is dictating games to teams. They very rarely have been taken out of the game. This past week is a very notable exception that came at a very bad time. And it's not going to get any easier. They got Spurs this weekend. I mean, they're going to win the title because they probably will rip Swansea apart in 2 weeks. But the fact is, this is not going to leave a great taste in the mouth of the board at City, who want to not just win the league, they want to win everything. And it's not like Guardiola is going to be in trouble or anything like that, but there's going to be a demand to increase this even more in the summer months, which, I think that looking ahead, this is where they need to address things and to continually to try and address the back line a little bit, because they do tend to struggle at one-on-one defending when they get opened up. It's rare when they get opened up, but they do struggle when it happens.
One thing, though, that we sometimes forget when we think of those big clubs and, they have to win on all front, is that it's not easy. It's difficult. It's hard, if not impossible. You're dealing with human beings with a certain amount of output you can have as performances, week in, week out. Injuries, you're looking at just being one of a good club with your tactics and trying to play your way, and everyone else trying to find a way to beat that. It's very difficult to always win at everything you're doing every single time, not having time to peak and to balance, to be able to grow and to peak at a certain time. You're basically from 11 of April to the end of the season, like August to April, you have to really be on all the time, and we forget that that's difficult.
No, for sure. And you hear teams talk about this all the time. We talked about this all the time. Chelsea, well, they win the title when they don't have other distractions, right? Have the other distractions, they don't win the title. It's been it's predictable at this point. So for City to have done as well as they've done and to get the League Cup, that's why I don't think people dismiss the League Cup a little too much. It's an opportunity to win something that's a little bit less taxing than the other competitions. That was something in the park. So they will probably end up this season with 2 trophies. That's, 2 more than last year. But the eternal pursuit of perfection will continue, and they're not quite there yet. As I said, I rank them about the 4th best team in the world right now, and that gap to get to 3rd, to get to 2nd, to get to 1st is going to be a hard one to close, because those teams above them, they're not going to stand still either.
All right, we have to go for today. As always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back for patrons only today with the 2nd edition of the Canadian Premier League Soccer Podcast, entirely dedicated to the Canadian Premier League and the Canadian soccer. And we will talk about the Canadian Women's National Team game that happened just a few days ago. Duane has a lot of thought on it, and we will talk about the Canadian soccer business as well. For patrons, only $2 a month gives you access to the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast. For patrons only, you can go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/sports podcasting network. Take the pledge, take the deep dive. Give us your trust. You won't regret it. That's 50 cents a show. 4 shows a month for $2. We thank every single one of you for not a bad demand. We're pretty happy so far with the amount of people that took the pledge, but with more of you, we can do even more. So patreon.com/sports podcast network. And Duane, as always, until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.